Hi, my name's Starsky and welcome to From the Studio on Clubbing TV. In this episode, we're going to have a play with the play from Polyend. Well, this is a unique bit of kit in that it can't produce any of its own sounds. It can play samples, but it can't actually sample anything, and it can play other bits of MIDI gear, but it can't produce its own synth tones. But what it does have is an amazingly feature-packed sequencer that you can have something like 30,000 different variations of the 128 patterns that you can pack into here, and you can arrange stuff really simply. You can chop stuff up. It's got an amazing performance mode, so it's a bit like a centerpiece for a doorless studio. You can control other MIDI bits of kit, or you can play samples, or it's like a minimalist setup, or the centerpiece for a minimalist setup if you're playing live. I say minimalist not as in the type of music, but as in the amount of stuff you've got to plug in on the table. But let's take a look first at exactly how it all works. There are a few main modes that we use in this, but by far the prettiest is this one. It's perform mode, and each of these squares has a different effect in it. They're basically set up in different categories, so filters, overdrives, delays, reverbs. Let's just have a little play some samples here. So we select which ones we're going to play. We'll play them all. High pass, low pass, overdrive. Then we've got effects like reverbs and delays. And you saw me using this in that intro track. And that's the one, if you've seen this online anywhere, that's the mode you'll have seen anyone using. And then we've got pattern mode. Come out of the performance mode, go into the patterns, and here I've only got a few that I've programmed for that track, but we can actually have 128. Every single one of these can be a separate pattern. Then hitting the pattern button again, we go into the actual sequence, the editing of individual steps. These are just the drums. Let's turn the daft vocoder off. And we've got 8 tracks of audio here, but that doesn't mean we can only have 8 samples, because every single one of these squares can have a different sample in it, which I'll show later. And we've got something similar for the MIDI. If we go to the MIDI, and this is what's all controlling the Blofeld. If I just unsolo that and come back into the MIDI, if we play this, solo that. Again, we've got 8 tracks, but that doesn't mean we've only got 8 MIDI channels, because each one of these can be a separate MIDI channel. And if we look in here, we've got jack channels, which are coming out of the back here, which is what I'm using at the minute. And we've got USB channels as well. So we've got 32 channels of MIDI. And each one of these steps, just like with the samples, each one of these cells or these squares can be a different MIDI channel. Okay, then let's take a quick look at how you'd actually program something on it. Okay, so again, we've got the sample page up. We know it's a sample page because these are green. If we go to the MIDI page, they're all purple. Okay, if we play this, just solo them one at a time. Got the kick, clap, hi-hats, and the snare that you can hardly hear. I don't know, should we try putting some hi-hats on? So it says hi-hat up in the top left, so we've selected the hi-hat. If we put some in here, let's just solo this track. So there's our hi-hats, but we can put them anywhere. And that's what they call pick and place. You pick your sample and you place it wherever you like on the grid. But I find it's much easier to do what you'd standardly do, which is have one on each track. And then you can go into each of one of those individual samples or each one of those individual cells and you can change it, you can filter it, you can add effects. So let's have a go. Let's put a big reverb on one of these snares. Are they the snares? Let's use the claps that are a bit louder. Okay, let's put a big reverb on this one. So we go into hold that, put the reverb sound on massive, nothing, lots. Let's put a filter on this one over here. So you get the general idea. It's a little bit like their tracker actually. I showed that about 6 months ago, and on the tracker, for every note that you play, you can pick, I think, 4 lanes of effects. There's a delay, there's a reverb. There's all sorts of effects there, but you've got 4 lanes which you can pick and choose. So you can have 4 per step. So they've learned from the tracker and they've put it into possibly a more intuitive interface. It's not as scary as the tracker when you first see it. Let's try something like that on the MIDI. We know we're on the MIDI because this is purple, and over here we can see the displays change to CC, to MIDI CCs, and that's because you can send 8 different MIDI CCs to each MIDI channel. But let's put something simple on for now. Let's go to MIDI channel 8 because I know there's a bass sound on that, on the Blofeld, and we'll just, what should we do? Should we just pick this C and we'll just put it on every one. And you notice here we've got a keyboard. It's a bit strange. It's sort of tilted 90 degrees, up an octave or 2, up more. So it does work like a MIDI controller as well. Different play modes here. Come down to here, play mode. Let's select the track. So forward, pretty simple. Reverse, we can see we're now going backwards. Not quite sure what it's doing there, but you can see it's not just playing forwards. I know making that sound a bit rubbish there, but you can imagine if you put a melody in there and then you swap the order of the notes and you start chopping and changing it, you can pick out really nice little variations. Some will be a bit rubbish, some will be rather nice. Forward, reverse, first steps, playing these and these. Not quite sure what go-go's doing. Those four and then those four. Two-stepper, just back and forth. But there's 35 of these different variations. So you're bound to find something that's nice. So if we look in these, we've got these 35 variations there. We've also got these different chants, and the action on the chants can be all these different things. And the amount of chants, we've got lots of different options on there about when things happen. Randomize, the amount of randomize, but we can randomize all these different parameters. So we've got filter, octaves, and velocity. Plus we've got reverb send, delay send, we've got overdrive, we've got bit depth, we've got repeat type, so we can have ratchets on there as well. Let's try some ratchets. Come into this step here, put repeats straight, put them on 8 per step. Same here, something like that. Another bit of fun. We can also slow down the tracks or speed them up. We can slow it down. All the way down to only playing once a bar. Or we can speed it up. So we've just got loads of different ways of making variations on this. We've got up to 64 steps per track. Each track can have a different amount of steps. They can all play in a different time. Just means that it's really, really super flexible, and get a nice sample pack, throw it in and just play around with it, and you come up with all sorts of really nice ideas. So there you have it, the Play from Polyend, a pretty unique bit of kit. If you want to play around with your arrangements, play around with tracks and just sort of jam for hours and hours, this is an amazing little bit of kit. Really inspirational. It's about £600, I think, 699 euros, something like that. So it's not cheap, but what it does is so effective. It's well worth checking out, especially if you're going to do some doorless jamming, because you can do everything, set it up in your studio and take this on the road. Lovely. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, don't forget you can catch it whenever you like on our Clubbing TV official YouTube channel on the From the Studio playlist. And if you've got any comments or questions, drop them in the comments and I'll see what I can do to answer them. And I'll see you in the next episode of From the Studio.